In 2014, during the Strike Hard campaign against violent activities and terrorism in China, citizens of a village in Xinjiang noticed that the crescent on a mosque was removed. Soon after, the imam and the boy responsible for the call to prayer disappeared into custody. Authorities then required all people who reside in the village to gather for a weekly Chinese flag-raising ceremony. Then authorities confiscated prayer mats and copies of the Quran. The authorities did these actions to eliminate terrorist threats by eradicating what they thought were ideological viruses. The authorities believed that the religion of Islam was extremist and that they are the cause of these threats, and they desired to decrease them through the process of genocide. Xinjiang, also known as the Uyghur Autonomous Region of Xinjiang, is the largest region in China. It borders multiple other regions such as Kashmir, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Russia, the Tibet Autonomous Region, and Mongolia. This region is home to the indigenous Uyghur Muslims. They call Xinjiang East Turkestan. The Uyghur were independent of the Chinese for 6,000 years until the Han Dynasty, where the Han established military colonies and commanderies to control Xinjiang from 120 BC. In 1954, a large population of Han immigrated to Xinjiang and has been growing significantly since. Over the years, there's been a constant conflict between the Han and the Uyghur. Through the years, there's been attacks in Xinjiang. The Communist Party of China, led by Xi Jinping, have blamed these attacks on Islamist extremists. So, in response to this, cities such as Beijing have heightened their security and turned Xinjiang into a surveillance state. With multiple checkpoints throughout the region and widespread use of facial recognition technology is used to find and intern Muslims in suspicion of extremism. To intern as many Islamist extremists as they can, the CPC has encouraged neighbors to spy on each other and to report if they'd seen any evidence of their neighbors being devoted to religion. The CPC would also encourage the youth of China to spy on their parents by reporting any religious activities their parents do to their state-controlled teachers. To further invade the privacy and eradicate the Muslim population, the CPC formulated the Becoming Family campaign, where a Chinese official would have regular homestays. During their visits, families would be required to share their information, political views, learn Mandarin, and sing the Chinese national anthem. These acts are in the favor of ethnic cleansing to fulfill the CPC's goals of Sunnicization. 10 to 20% of Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang are currently experiencing or have endured the horrors of the largest network of internment camps since World War II. Anyone who had open or private displays of religion and cultural affiliation, including growing a beard, wearing a veil or headscarf, regular prayer, fasting, the avoidance of alcohol, and possessing books about Islam or Uyghur culture would raise suspicion to the authorities. Traveling abroad for work or education, particularly to Muslim-majority countries, would also raise suspicion. Families would become separated, having the older members placed in internment while children were placed in orphanages, where they would be engineered to turn their backs on their parents, religion, and culture in the favor of atheism. Tahir Ayman left Xinjiang to study in Israel, and after his wife was arrested and his daughter was placed in an orphanage, he used to call her every day, and one day she turned her back on him. This is his story.
Your daughter won't turn out to be a scum like you, says the voice. She'll be useful to the Communist Party. The implication was clear. Her fate was in their hands.
He said, one day you will need support. One day you will need assistance from the Chinese government if you go back to your homeland. Your family members, your wife, your daughter, still are in Urumqi.
Before Imin left China, he lived here, Urumqi, the provincial capital of Xinjiang. He used to call his daughter all the time, but in February she told him, "Don't call me or my mother again." Her last words to her father were these: "You're a bad person." With so many people missing in Xinjiang, including his brother and sister, Imin is not sure if his wife and daughter are safe.
Families who would have one of their family members in internment had no clue what went on inside or why they were there. They were told that their family members were learning the national language.
These children, accompanied by their grandparents, say their father is imprisoned there. What is this place?
It's a school, a place to learn.
To learn what?
The national language.
Do you know why your father is there?
I don't really know.
a few meters away, this man also says one of his family's locked up. Do you know people inside?
Yes, my big brother is in there.
Why?
He's studying.
But why was he sent here?
We don't know.
Do you know what he's studying?
The Communist Party.
Since 2013, the internment camps in Xinjiang have grown in size and number, resulting in more than 100 camps, which can house around 8,000 people. Uyghurs would be forced into camps for suspicious activity. The goal of the CPC was to sever any foreign ties Muslim residents may have by recalling passports, forcing those who lived abroad to return, and imprisoning those with foreign connections. Gulbahar Haitawaji is a female engineer who lived abroad in France and received numerous calls from her former boss in China to come back and sign papers to receive pension. She was tricked into coming back. This is her story.
He didn't stop calling for a week. He had a very hard tone and he said, "Come back. You don't have any other choice. Come back. You have to sign these papers. We can't wait any longer. You have to come back." She took a ticket for 2 weeks and was supposed to return on the 10th of December.
On arrival in China, her passport was confiscated and her husband and 2 daughters lost all contact with her. They had no news for 6 months.
It was very hard, and then in June or July 2017, or about 6 months afterwards, my aunt called and said my mother was in a re-education camp. I believe she said she's in re-education, she's in training, or at school. But we never realised it would go so far, and that it would last so long, with all these camps and millions of prisoners. We never imagined that.
On était trop loin d'imaginer ça.
Inside the camps, Muslims were forced to eat pork and drink alcohol, which are both restricted in the religion of Islam. They were also to memorize Communist Party songs, forced into hard labor and work, enroll in Mandarin language courses and comprehensive trainings to extract the religion and culture from them. Those who would resist would be tortured. Gulbahar Jelilova is one of the many Uyghurs who had been imprisoned in these camps. She was in camp for a year, 3 months, and 10 days, and eventually was released. Here she talks about the life of a detainee in the camps.
I was exhausted. They took me into a secure room with heavy metal doors, which made a lot of noise when they were opened. The room was around 20 meters squared, and there was no window. There were about 40 women inside. Half of them were standing up. The others were lying on the ground against each other. All of them wore heavy chains on their feet. Once a week, they showed us a video of Xi Jinping. Then they told us to write assessments on ourselves. They wanted to make sure our ways of thinking changed and improved. Every Monday at 9:55, we had to stand up and sing the Chinese national anthem. For the rest of the week, we had to sing 5 songs every day. Oh, I've forgotten the rest. We sang this kind of song. If we didn't sing, they didn't give us any food. And then they punished us. They injected us from time to time. We had to stick our arms out through a small opening in the door once a week. We soon realised that after the injections, we didn't get our periods anymore. Mine stopped 1 month after the start of my detention. Then we no longer thought about anything. We no longer thought about our relatives, our families. I didn't know where I'd been born. I felt like I'd always lived there. We no longer felt the cold and the hunger. It's as if we were just pieces of meat that had been put there.
Saragul Sutbe, not a detainee, but a former teacher in one of the many camps in China, also talks about what she has witnessed in these camps.
Every day I had to make the prisoners work. I needed to make them say hundreds of times, thousands of times, "I am Chinese, I am proud of China." They had to say these sentences standing up, saying them loudly, and I had to guide them thousands of times. They had to pronounce their love for Xi Jinping and for the Communist Party. When I went to the class, there were 2 armed policemen following behind me. When I gave the lessons, they stayed behind me. Everything I taught was recorded, and the policemen stayed at the door. Sometimes when I was giving the class, the armed policeman burst into the classroom. 2 or 3 people would be forcibly removed from among the detainees. I never saw those people again. Sometimes in the evening at dinner, we would hear people calling out for help. Those voices, they were the saddest voices I've ever heard. We thought they were being tortured.
The Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom, either alone or in community with others and in public or private, to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. As observed from this documentary, we can see that China is clearly violating Article 18 by their genocide against Uyghur Muslims.